Today you and I are looking at an expensive leather bag left on bench 7, waiting for a man of true integrity. No name tag, no address. Just a gold clasp and the scent of luxury drifting away on the late afternoon breeze. Isaac Ward picked it up with the rough, calloused hands of an honest man who had spent 4 years quietly repairing things that others had simply thrown away. He never planned to keep it, nor did he even consider opening it. His only goal was returning it safely because honesty requires no reward. But when a security guard forced him to open it for inspection, Isaac glimpsed the incredible secrets hidden inside. He knew right then that this quiet evening was far from over, and that all her money could never shield billionaire Evelyn Cross from the power of the truth. Isaac Ward was a humble man, the kind most wealthy people ignored. He wore his faded blue Parks Department work uniform every single day, heavy boots on his feet and a simple handkerchief in his pocket, though not out of habit. His little boy Eli got bad nosebleeds from playing, and Isaac always made sure he was prepared. It was almost 6 o'clock on a freezing Wednesday evening in October. The last few visitors had left the park an hour ago, leaving behind littered juice boxes, a discarded plastic toy shovel by the sandbox, and that quiet stillness you only feel in open spaces after sunset. Isaac walked down the east trail carrying his trash picker and a canvas bag, checking every single street lamp just like he did before clocking out. He never rushed. Real integrity requires taking your time. Stick with me here. He was a man who gave his absolute best to everything. His son Eli sat on the concrete steps by the maintenance shack, waiting right where he always did after school. The boy was only 7 years old. He had a wide gap between his front teeth and a habit of chewing on his wooden pencils. That evening he was busy drawing inside a spiral notebook, pressing down so hard the lead left marks on the next page. Beside him on the ground, rolling across the concrete, was a small blue toy car, the last gift his mother gave him before she passed away. Isaac checked his watch, 5:47. The corner market on Farrell Street closed at 6. He quickly calculated his pennies, milk, bread, and maybe an apple for the boy's lunch. He would have just enough if he simply skipped his morning coffee before starting work. He had been making those same painful sacrifices for 2 long years. He stopped feeling sorry for himself about being poor after the first few months. There was simply far too much to handle, and self-pity would only consume the energy he needed just to keep them alive. Diana had lost her life on a freezing Tuesday morning 2 years ago. A terrible highway accident on the overpass, a tragedy she could never have prevented. She was just 30 years old. Isaac spent her final 3 months inside that hospital room, sitting on a hard plastic chair reading out loud from whatever old paperbacks were left nearby, and when she finally slipped away, he simply took his son home. You and I know true heartbreak, but Isaac put his pain aside, choosing to teach his son that integrity comes first. He had a hungry young boy to feed. Rent was due and his honest labor was waiting. You and I know why Isaac kept pushing. He had a son beside him who needed to see that truth and honor matter most. Isaac hadn't set foot near park bench number 7 since that tragic afternoon. His wife Diana sat there with little Eli last summer. She was still healthy then, feeding pigeons and sipping lemonade from paper cups. He walked past that bench every single night on his final sweep, never once sitting down. Some honest, sacred memories are only kept safe by staying a careful distance away. But that evening, right before clocking out, Isaac spotted the abandoned bag. It sat perfectly upright on the wooden slats of bench number 7, positioned so neatly, as if its wealthy owner had just set it down, planning to return any second. A rich brown leather tote, the kind of luxury bag built by people who know real wealth never has to shout. A heavy brass tag hung from the handle, roughly the size of a calling card. Isaac read the engraved name E. Cross of the Cross Meridian Foundation. A phone number sat right below. He picked up the tote, much heavier than it looked. Little Eli popped up beside him. "What is that, Dad? Someone left it." Isaac murmured. "Is there money in it? It is not ours." Isaac answered with quiet integrity. "So we do not even count it." He brought the heavy designer bag to the shed, carefully logging the date and time, then dialed that fancy brass tag's phone number. It rang twice before kicking over to a recorded voicemail. Isaac hung up. He found the main number for the Billionaire's charity on a faded community flyer pinned to his bulletin board. The foundation had funded the new water fountain by the west gates. He dialed the line. A stiff receptionist answered. She took his details and the bag's description, her arrogant tone making it clear she thought she was doing his honesty a massive favor by staying on the line. She claimed the elite corporate office would call him in the morning, telling him to bring the bag in person to prove his identity. Isaac politely thanked her, jotted down the prestigious address, and hung up. Eli was already fast asleep, curled up on the beat-up sofa by the time his dad finished filling out that honest lost-and-found paperwork. A little blue toy car tucked safely under his arm. Isaac sat in silence, staring at that heavy leather tote now locked securely inside his modest metal cabinet. Later that night, the park shed's main phone actually rang twice before midnight. Both times, the mystery caller left absolutely nothing. Let's look at the Grand Cross Meridian Tower, standing tall at Wentworth Avenue and 53rd Street. 40 stories of cold glass and steel, reflecting the clouds as if money could buy the sky. Totally immovable, as if this whole city had been built entirely to serve its towering power. Isaac arrived the next morning wearing his only clean non-uniform outfit. A simple white shirt, neat black pants, and the decent leather shoes he kept for rare school events. He brought young Eli along. Since his morning sitter canceled last minute, and they had nobody else. A lobby built purely to make honest working-class people feel incredibly small. Spotless white marble floors that echoed every single nervous footstep. 2 security guards in dark suits stood watching, keeping their hands clasped tight in a stiff, highly practiced stance. A giant front desk carved entirely from a single slab of pale cold stone. Eli reached out to touch a massive polished column near the doors, quickly yanking his hand away when the surface felt freezing cold. The firm's receptionist asked Isaac his name 3 times, dragging out each word to see if this honest, decent man would crack and change his story. She just waved me away. I dragged my heavy boots to a cheap armless chair tucked against the far wall, right by the trash bins. We were kept far from the wealthy guests by an unspoken rule about where people like us belong. I sat down and my boy sat right beside me. Eli pulled some scrap paper from his pocket and started doodling to pass the time. Before the billionaire owner showed up, another man stepped out of the elevator. He looked about 44 years old, with slick hair combed completely flat. A luxury Patek Philippe watch flashed on his wrist every single time he moved. His dark charcoal suit fit perfectly. It was the kind of expensive tailoring only status and money can buy. He marched across the marble floor with the total confidence of a man who never looks down, expecting the rest of the world to just step aside. I'd soon learn his name was Jason Holt. He was the chief financial officer for the giant Cross Meridian Foundation. Jason stopped right in front of us, stared at the designer bag and sized me up. "Thank you for coming in," he told me. His voice was polite but completely empty. It was the fake warmth of a corporate man pretending to care. "I'm the CFO. Miss Cross is stuck in meetings all morning. I am authorized to take her personal property right now." He held out his right hand. I just stared at his open hand and stayed right in my seat. "You and I both know real integrity cannot be brokered." I calmly told him that Miss Cross owned this bag, and I would return it to her personally. I said I would wait. He kept smiling, but his eyes turned ice cold. "You are a city parks worker?" "Yes, I am," I replied. "And you know where you are?" "Yes, I do," I said. Then the elevator chimed. Evelyn Cross swept into the lobby in a navy dress, walking with the posture of someone who believes her time is far more valuable than anything else. She looked 35, with dark hair and the rigid posture of someone raised to believe she owned the world. She looked at her designer handbag in my hands, then at my dusty work boots. Her expression stayed completely blank. I stood up and handed the bag to her. She accepted it, offering a flat "thank you." Just those 2 cold words. Her mind was already back on business as she turned toward the elevator. But as I let go, the inside zipper caught on my rough thumb, pulling open just a tiny bit. A folded piece of paper slid out and drifted down to the cold floor. I bent down to grab it, but the heavy elevator doors had already closed, shutting her inside. Jason instantly reached out his hand, and I dropped the paper right into his palm. He folded it up and slipped it deep into his suit pocket without even looking at it. But here is the real truth. In that split second, I had already read the first 3 words on the page. 3 bold words in print, confidential board audit. Eli tugged on my sleeve. Can we go home now? I'm hungry. Yeah, buddy, I said. Let's go. Heading home on the bus with my boy asleep on my shoulder, I just stared out the window in absolute silence. I was not thinking about the massive corporate secrets stamped at the top of that sheet. I was honestly trying my best to forget them completely. But here is the real truth we both share. When I locked that briefcase up last night, the hidden zipper was already split wide open, yet my honest heart chose not to look inside. You see, he never meant to pry. He only tried fixing the broken zipper, but that exposed everything inside that expensive luxury bag. A high-end leather wallet, a cheap burner phone with cracked glass, a sealed envelope, and a thin blue folder lying open showing the first page. He wasn't trying to read secret papers. He didn't touch it, but with the folder wide open, the bold print glared, and you and I know eyes can't just shut. They simply take in whatever is right there. A massive number, $47,200,000. And scribbled next to it in red, unauthorized transfer. Signed by Jason Holt. Isaac quickly zipped it shut and locked the cabinet. He decided this wasn't his fight. He was just a simple groundskeeper raising his boy. He did honest work, paid rent on time, and raised a son who still smiled. He wouldn't risk his quiet life over a corporate secret he accidentally stumbled onto. But riding that bus home, he remembered that children's health charity logo, the one he stared at every day for 3 years on the hospital wall at St. Albans Medical Center. He remembered the morning a sweet nurse pulled him aside to whisper that a silent grant from the foundation had completely paid off his late wife's hospital bills. He never found out who approved that lifesaver or why. He was just deeply grateful, the kind of thankfulness you only feel when you have nothing left to give. $47,000 from a children's charity. He watched his young boy sleeping on his shoulder, clutching a small toy car. Sometimes you see something wrong, Isaac whispered to the quiet air. And you have to decide whether you will just look away. 2 quiet days passed. Isaac kept to his honest shifts, clearing dry leaves off the park trail. He repaired a broken board on the bridge and signed off on his monthly log. Young Eli drew in his notebook and begged for French toast that morning. He got his treat because Isaac found a great deal on some eggs. That afternoon, a very rich-looking man appeared outside the maintenance shed. He had ditched his suit jacket, and his shirt collar was undone. We all know the type, wealthy but pretending to be regular folks. Isaac knew exactly who he was. Jason Holt sat on a wooden bench, waiting silently until Isaac put down his tools and looked him in the eye. "What exactly did you see in that fancy bag?" Jason asked casually. That easy tone was a trap. "I just returned your bag," Isaac replied. "That is all." Jason paused. "I think you saw something you shouldn't have." "I'm not accusing you, just asking." Isaac stood his ground with quiet integrity. Jason drew a fat white envelope from his coat and laid it between them. $15,000, he said, "to help with your expenses for your boy. No conditions, no strings, no paper trail. You do not have to do a thing, just stay quiet. Just keep living your life." Isaac looked at the money, then at Jason. But honesty cannot be bought. Isaac refused the bribe, so Jason just leaned back. Then, in a chilling whisper, the powerful man named the exact school Eli attended. The man casually mentioned the exact bus number little Eli took home twice a week. He noted that Isaac's evening shift ended at 6 p.m., pointing out that his maintenance shed sat completely off the security camera grid. It was never framed as an open threat. He just stated the cold facts, proving he knew every detail of Isaac's quiet life. Isaac stood up slowly and calmly. His fingers tightened around the heavy iron shears he had set down moments before. "You just told me everything I needed to know," Isaac replied. Jason grabbed the envelope. The suit strolled out through the east gate, just as calm as when he arrived. Alone at last, Isaac pulled out his phone, searching the city registry for the Billionaire's official staff directory. His eyes stopped on Grace Adler, executive assistant to the Billionaire. He immediately dialed the office main line. He asked for Grace directly, leaving a calm, steady message at the beep. He gave his real name, demanding to speak directly with Evelyn Cross herself. This was no longer about a lost briefcase. It was about the corporate thugs sent to threaten him. That night, Isaac double-checked his lock while little Eli watched silently from the kitchen table. "Are you scared, Dad?" "No," Isaac replied, checking the heavy metal lock once more. "I'm just being careful. Big difference." The next morning, Grace played the voicemail and marched straight to Evelyn Cross before her first board meeting. Evelyn read his name, stared at the message, and slowly put the note down in dead silence. Then, she read it again. She had been holding on to that explosive audit report for 6 long weeks. "Let's look at this together." She was quietly setting a trap for the corrupt executive ruling her empire. Moving in silence, gathering cold evidence from the outside in. That blue folder inside her lost briefcase? Just a draft of the secret financial audit. Not the original copy. The real file was already locked safely away with her trusted outside lawyers. She never planned to lose that bag. And she never expected a stranger to return it with every single page untouched. Grace returned soon with a background file on Isaac Ward, leaving the billionaire completely speechless. Isaac Ward, 31, a simple city park groundskeeper with an absolutely flawless record of service. Widower, his wife Diana had died tragically 2 years before. The cause, a fatal car accident on the overpass one cold November morning. And the other car belonged to Evelyn's own foundation. It was driven by a contractor leaving her company's lavish autumn gala. The contractor's blood alcohol level was 0.14. Her high-priced lawyers quickly buried the tragedy with an out-of-court settlement. Isaac accepted the modest check, choosing peace over a long, bitter legal battle. The executive who authorized that cheap payout to keep him quiet, Jason Holt. Picture this. Evelyn sat frozen, realizing she had personally signed off on that tragic cover-up. She instantly remembered the paper, the exact date, and the cold price tag. But back then, she never even learned the victim's name. She hadn't bothered to ask. Just another corporate liability. Jason handled the dirty work, while she blindly signed her name to save face. This grieving father had every reason in the world to hate her entire empire. But as we will see, raw honesty can open doors wealth never could. Look at his honesty. He returned the bag unopened, leaving a quiet note. But he warned the billionaire that an insider was trying to force his silence. Evelyn immediately had Grace arrange a secret meeting. Off the books, far away from corporate headquarters. That Saturday afternoon, they met in a quiet, secluded spot by the park fountain. Grace kept a respectful distance, while Evelyn arrived in a simple coat, her collar turned up. Up close, the powerful billionaire looked smaller than in her photos. Nearby, Isaac's young son Eli played happily on the playground swings. Isaac stood up to shake her hand as she approached. "You want to discuss Jason Holt?" It was no question. Isaac met her gaze. "I want to know if you already knew what he was doing." That was no question either. Evelyn immediately respected his raw, blunt honesty. She gave him the absolute truth without holding back. She already knew about those illegal cash transfers she had for 6 weeks. She was quietly building a lawsuit with outside attorneys because rushing was too risky. Jason had the system access and cover-ups to shift the blame to others. He could easily frame the department heads who had blindly signed those documents. They approved huge transactions without checking the fine print. She needed an honest outsider, someone with integrity that power and money could never buy. Isaac just listened. She explained the stolen cash came from a children's charity, over $47 million, taken from 11 hospitals. Isaac looked back at the swings, watching his little boy kick toward the sky. "St. Albans Medical Center," he whispered quietly. "The kids' ward." "Yes," Evelyn replied, watching him closely, but he did not look angry. "You and I know that look, a man processing a cruel truth he hoped wasn't real." Then she revealed the painful rest. She confessed to the quiet settlement, the payoff, and signing away a victim's rights without even knowing their name. She laid out the harsh facts plainly. A man of his integrity deserved nothing less than absolute truth. A deep, heavy silence hung in the air between them. Eli suddenly rushed over, completely out of breath, proudly showing off a new drawing in his notepad. "Dad, the swing is broken. I will fix it in just a second, buddy," Isaac promised. He walked back to the swings, knelt down to inspect the twisted chain, and untangled it with a quick twist. He gave the swing a gentle push. Then he walked back and sat on the bench, looking straight at the billionaire. "What exactly do you need from me?" he asked quietly. She needed an official, sworn statement of exactly what his eyes had witnessed, with dates and times. Where he spotted the briefcase, the suspicious documents inside, and every single word he had read. His honesty unlocked everything. He had no financial interests, no foundation ties, and no connection to their schemes. Jason had already built up a massive legal defense claiming that no independent witnesses even existed. Isaac's truthful testimony would shatter that lie before his legal team could use it. A simple choice of integrity. Isaac nodded once and agreed to help. She asked why he would choose to protect her now, especially after everything her massive foundation had done to his family. Isaac quietly pondered her question for a brief second. He finally answered, "Because this is not about your huge foundation. It is about 11 hospitals and the sick kids inside them. I didn't need you to be perfect. I just needed you to try making it right." For 3 long years, a powerful woman like Evelyn Cross hadn't shed a single tear. She didn't break down right then, but her silence hung heavy, lasting a heartbeat too long. Getting Isaac's simple, honest statement took 3 full days with the foundation's high-priced lawyers. Picture him there, a simple father sitting in that polished, expensive conference room on Tuesday afternoon. His little boy Eli sat beside him snacking on crackers, while Isaac answered every question honestly. Just pure integrity. He simply detailed exactly what he saw, starting with where that designer bag sat, the exact moment he spotted it, and how those confidential papers peeked from the open zipper, the exact dollar numbers and the handwritten notes on that very first page. He didn't guess anyone's motives, nor did he try to judge Jason Holt's shady behavior. Just pure truth. He only described exactly what was right before him. They only asked for the truth, and he gave it without holding a single thing back. But Jason Holt saw this coming. 2 days before the board met, Holt's high-priced lawyers filed an objection, claiming that Isaac's testimony was an illegal, unauthorized review of private files by an outsider. Their high-priced legal argument was sharp, detailed, and definitely would have caused massive procedural headaches if that were Holt's only big problem that morning. It definitely wasn't. The sudden Cross-Meridian Foundation emergency board meeting began right at 9 in the morning up on the 38th floor inside a massive glass boardroom looking out at 3 bridges and the cold gray river far below. 12 powerful board members took their seats around that massive, expensive table. Jason Holt sat confidently on the left, shielded by his high-priced legal team. Looking sharp and perfectly calm, he oozed the smug confidence of a billionaire who believed money could still buy his way out. Isaac took the witness chair at the far end of that massive mahogany table. He wore that same simple, clean white shirt. No expensive lawyers, just his honest word. Jason's attorney attacked instantly. With respect to the board, the witness sitting before you possesses 0 professional credentials. No background in accounting, and absolutely no basis for interpreting whatever he claims he read. His testimony should be completely dismissed. But honesty doesn't flinch. Isaac just faced the lawyer and spoke with total calm. "I don't need fancy credentials to read a person's name and a number. I just need to know how to read." A stunned silence fell over that powerful boardroom. At the far end, a wealthy board member slowly lowered his gold-plated pen. Let's watch what happened next. Evelyn Cross stood up to present the undeniable evidence. First, a massive internal audit report, fully authenticated and certified by an independent accounting firm. Second, the direct logs of all 47 transfer authorizations spanning an 18-month stretch. Every document stamped with Jason's personal digital signature, along with a secondary approval code generated solely from his private administrative login. And third, the backup server's archived email. Jason Holt sent that message to a shady broker just 48 hours before Isaac returned that lost bag to the lobby. The subject line simply read, "Processing Review." But that last chilling sentence demanded, "Destroy all those file copies before Friday." One honest choice shattered his entire scheme. The board chairman dropped that printed email right in front of Jason. Jason sat frozen. His expensive lawyer opened his mouth to object, choked on the words, and went silent. Then the board chairman quietly asked, "We are witnessing the power of truth." Jason retreated as the honest auditors stepped in. 2 imposing building security guards stood like statues right beside the main conference room door. The disgraced executive marched down the long table toward the exit. He rushed past Isaac, too proud to look at the man who exposed him. Without a word, he left, the heavy door clicking shut behind him. By noon, the massive charity scandal dominated every major news broadcast. Headlines screamed that a powerful corporate executive stole $47 million of charity funds. By sunset, the exact number of suffering hospitals was finally made public. 11 vulnerable children's medical programs across the city. 3 clinics had already cut treatment capacity for uninsured children during the previous fiscal year, blaming what they believed were natural budget shortfalls from the foundation. Let us trace the money which vanished into complex offshore accounts. The secret corporate fraud had been operating for 18 long months. But Isaac's quiet name hit the front pages before he even realized. A reporter found him at the park next morning, where he was quietly repairing a wooden storage box. He calmly stated he had nothing to add to the official story. The journalist pushed further, asking if his actions made him a hero. He paused, explaining he simply returned a lost bag and spoke the truth when asked. Then he simply gathered his tools and returned to his quiet labor. The very next afternoon, Eli's teacher showed his class the news article. She gently asked the boy if the famous man pictured was his father. He nodded proudly, then went back to coloring the water cycle diagram on his desk. But that evening, staring over his soup at the kitchen table, he finally spoke. "You did the right thing, didn't you, Dad?" It was not a question. Isaac replied, "I did not do the wrong thing. And that is enough." Billionaire Evelyn Cross issued her public statement that day. She announced an immediate overhaul of the foundation's corrupt board of directors, a strict independent audit of all operational accounts spanning 5 long years, plus complete financial restoration for the Children's Health Initiative program, all $47 million, sent back to those 11 hospitals in 90 days alongside an extra grant to cover any funding gaps caused by the stolen cash. One of those 11 saved programs was the Family Support Fund at St. Albans Medical Center, where the executive had stolen $3.2 million. That exact program had once covered a portion of Diana Ward's medical bills. 1 week later, the wealthy Evelyn Cross returned to the park once more. Grace Adler was not beside her. Dressed in a simple gray coat, she walked straight ahead. Through the east gate around 4 p.m., framed by fading golden sunlight and bare winter trees. Isaac was calmly repainting the number above the bench on the east path, bench number 7, with a tiny brush and white paint. At her footsteps he turned, gave a brief nod, and went back to work. He completed the final stroke before setting his brush aside. She waited, realizing that quiet honesty holds a power money can never buy. She never expected a poor man's honest choice. Isaac gave her the quiet respect to speak, never rushing to fill that wealthy silence with demands. "I signed a blind document 2 years ago," she confessed. "A basic settlement summary. That case file crossed my desk from Jason's corporate office. The victim was stripped down to just 2 cold initials." She hesitated, and I never bothered asking for the real name. "I had 8 meetings that morning. I blindly signed your family's fate and just moved on to the next." With quiet dignity, Isaac rested his worn brush across the metal paint can. "When your assistant sent me that lost bag," she continued, "I finally read the whole police report, every single page." Her voice stayed steady, but the wealthy woman was visibly struggling. "I had zero clue a child was hurt, or that you were still scraping by in this city. I didn't know the human cost. I should have checked before I blindly sealed a legal document meant to close out your family's darkest chapter." Isaac met her with absolute silence. "I really don't know how to apologize for corporate damage that can't be undone," she admitted. "And I fully know my empty words today won't fix anything. But you deserve this truth, even if my wealth can't make it right anymore." He studied her face, looking past her wealth. He finally spoke. "I brought that luxury bag back before I knew who you were, before learning about your charity, the accident, before all this mess. I returned it simply because it wasn't mine." He picked his brush back up, twirling it slowly in his calloused, working hands. "I'm not sharing my side just to make you feel okay. I'm telling you so you see why I'm still standing here talking, instead of just walking away. This was never about a payout. Stick with me here." Across the playground, little Eli came sprinting, clutching a cheap notebook, totally out of breath. He stopped right in front of the wealthy woman, proudly holding out his sketchbook. The page showed a messy drawing in bright blue and orange crayon, a simple tree, a tiny home, and 3 happy people. "That's our special park," Eli beamed. Evelyn gently took the notebook, staring at the innocent drawing for a long, silent moment. Her trembling hands stilled before she finally handed the childhood sketch back to him. Then she asked the honest man the one big question she had come for. She asked what he truly needed, not for his own bank account, she quickly made clear. She already knew how a man of such rare integrity would respond. She wanted to know what mattered most, and he didn't demand a high-paying job. He never asked for massive wealth, easy fame, or his name on some fancy building. He said, "Your charity's health fund, stop letting it just be a meaningless corporate plaque. There are countless kids here whose parents are out there forced to make the exact same. Brutal choices I make every week, and they don't always have my kind of luck. Take those 11 charity programs and make them entirely permanent. Make that money a hard rule, not a handout." She promised she would, and he believed her. 3 entire months slipped by, leaves slowly returned to the tall elm trees. You could see fresh green touching the bare park branches by early March. You and I know this truth well. Small, honest choices quietly take root, opening doors that wealth could never touch. Through it all, Isaac Ward still quietly worked at Harlow Green Park. His humble work uniform remained badly faded right at the shoulder. Think about it. Those boots he wore were the exact same cheap pair he bought 2 years ago at that Mallory Street discount store. By February, his quiet dedication finally earned him the shift supervisor job for the Eastern Maintenance Zone. It was a modest reward, far from the grand payouts money can buy. He simply put in honest hours, proved his worth, and the older supervisor finally retired. Every cent of that small raise went directly into a new savings account for his son Eli. Then one morning, a brand new spiral notebook mysteriously appeared on the concrete step by the maintenance shed, right where Eli always spent his afternoons. It was high quality, with thick paper bound in a sturdy forest green cover. Inside the cover, a small, careful note was written in tiny letters, "For the kid who draws the park." There was no signature. Eli had absolutely no idea who had left it. He accepted the gift without any hesitation. He opened to the first page and immediately began sketching the South Gate duck pond. Isaac just stood in the doorway of the shed, silently watching his son. Later that night, as his shift ended, Isaac sat down on bench number 7. The fresh white number painted on the backrest stood out, catching the last glow of the evening sun. The park was completely empty, just him. Eli climbed up and sat next to him, driving his blue toy car across the old wood while humming those soft engine noises. "Dad," Eli whispered after a moment. "Yeah? Why did you return that briefcase?" Isaac paused to find the words. He looked at the last few people walking along the far path. A couple with their dog and an old man wearing a bright red hat. "Because it belonged to someone else," Isaac replied. Eli thought about this. Was that the only reason? That was the whole reason. Down the path, the new LED lights Isaac installed last spring began turning on as darkness fell. They had replaced those buzzing yellow bulbs that used to fail in the winter cold. Now they lit up instantly, bright and clear. That is the beauty of honest work. You build it with integrity, and it stands firm. Isaac leaned back, letting the soft light shine down on him and his son. Eli rested his toy car on the bench and looked up, watching the lamps glow one after the other. Here is the truth you and I discover. Doing the right thing rarely comes with applause. There are no cheering crowds, no medals, and no loud announcements. It is just a silent moment where you see a chance to make a difference. And in that split second, you decide whether integrity actually matters to you. You make the honest choice, then you head home, cook some dinner, lock up, and watch your boy sleep in peace. Isaac Ward simply found a forgotten bag resting on a park bench. He did everything he could to return it to its true owner. He stood tall and told the truth, even when honesty threatened to cost him everything. He never wanted a reward, because real integrity is something money can never buy. In a city where $47 million was stolen from children who needed it most, one ordinary man in a worn work uniform refused to look the other way. Not to play the hero, and not for some dramatic glory you only find in fairy tales. The bag was not his, and as you and I know, honesty is worth more than any reward.